Turning now to Kamala Harris and some of the changes that she's made in her campaign, it appears that she has fully flip-flopped on immigration, and one of our own producers remarked that one of her latest ads on the border may as well come from the Republicans. Let's take a listen.
Kamala Harris has spent decades fighting violent crime. As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border. As vice president, she backed the toughest border control bill in decades. And as president, she will hire thousands more border agents and crack down on fentanyl and human trafficking. Fixing the border is tough. So is Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
That she approves the message, Krystal. I mean, this is gotta be one of the biggest about faces that we have seen yet from Kamala. On the record, her campaign has disavowed now her positions, what is it, on fracking, on immigration, on healthcare. Am I missing anything in terms of
I'm
the
sure
major disavowals? I mean, but those are the big ones.
Pretty much anything she said in 2020
minimum wage,
of the 2020 primary.
Or maybe I could be wrong.
She's run away from. Yeah, I mean, listen, she's not wrong that they did pursue actually a quite hawkish, by Democratic standards, policy on the border and tried to pass that bill that had a lot of the Republican wish list priorities, et cetera. But, you know, as I've been saying, Saagar, like, I don't think that this is the most effective messaging because I don't think it's particularly credible.
It's literally not credible.
If you're leaning, this ad right here, like putting aside my views of the immorality of this direction, this ad right here just cedes the ground to the Republican view of immigration, in which the only focus needs to be cracking down, in which immigration is always bad, and there's nothing on the other side. We also, you know, to your point, and I'll get to what I think would be more effective and what the sort of polling and data suggests would be more effective than this just like, I'll be as tough as Donald Trump, if not even more. It also really does contrast with the way she used to talk about the issue not so long ago. Let's take a listen to a little bit of that.
To somehow suggest that an undocumented immigrant is a criminal. Being an undocumented immigrant is not a crime. I know what a crime looks like. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. When we talk about the immigration debate, I think there is no question that there are powerful forces, including this president, that are attempting to vilify immigrants because they were born in another country and suggest that they are therefore any different in terms of their fundamental values or beliefs or priorities. And I think all of us as Americans should be insulted by that suggestion, knowing that all of us are just a few generations, if not one generation, away from immigrants who arrived in this country.
I mean, come on. You know, it's a total about face in terms of how she's framing it.
And the reason it bugs me is that, you know, when you don't sit for an interview, even a Jake Tapper or somebody like that can roll back his own tape and be like, what are we doing here? You're like, you really are going to sit here credibly and make this case? We have gone from Kamala to criminal justice Kamala to back to Kamala. And it's like, who are you? And this is where at least some people in the Trump field have begun to found their footing. So JD had a potent attack in one of his interviews over the weekend where he's like, this woman believes nothing. She's a scripted machine. She is somebody who is completely a flip-flopper. And I thought back to 2004 and some of the flip-flopped attack on John Kerry. And if we think back to what those splice ads used to look like back then, keep in mind that was on security. But the reason why I think it's potent here is immigration is the #1 swing issue, whereas the biggest gulf between the two. And it's similar, actually, how the Democrats should be hitting Donald Trump. Be like, he claims that abortion is not going to be a big issue or any of that. It's like, if I were them, I would say, tell that to the women who are literally unable to get an abortion or don't even know, can't have any choice, before they even find out that they're pregnant. So you want to be able to hit the gulf issue where the biggest, issue divides you and your opponent. So that is where I think the Trump people are going to try and focus. But as you also correctly said, I think there is something just so deeply phony about this, which hits to her character, where you have no credibility. We don't trust you. You said something very different previously, and now, because of polling or whatever, you've decided to disavow this. And if we do see swings or more potent attacks come on Kamala, it will come from this type of direction, I think.
So, I mean, we all know why she's doing it, because if you poll on the issues, this is the issue where she has the greatest vulnerability. And, you know, the Democratic instinct is, rather than make an alternative case that actually reflects, you know, the vision as Democrats have expressed it, including Kamala Harris over the past number of years, just to see the ground, say, you know, we're going to be just as tough. And again, I don't think that that is the most effective way to go about it. But let's put this polling up on the screen. This is from a Democratic group that was testing a bunch of different messaging and potential attacks on Kamala Harris. And the one that was the most damaging was on immigration. The message they tested specifically was, Vice President Harris has been an absolute disaster on immigration. As Biden's so-called border czar, she has turned our southern border into a sieve, allowing countless illegal immigrants, criminals, and drug traffickers to flood into our country. Her incompetence and open border policies have jeopardized American security and overwhelmed our southern border. So that was the most potent hit on her that they tested. And they tested an economic message. They tested like something like the anti-family message. They tested the she's not really black message. That one didn't do particularly well. But note what the most effective rebuttal is here. The number one most effective rebuttal that they tested was, as a daughter of immigrants, Vice President Harris understands that people who want to come to the U.S. should do so the legal way, like her parents did, and that we need a system that creates better legal pathways for people to immigrate the right way. Vice President Harris understands our nation's strength comes from immigrants, and we welcome people from all over the world to pursue freedom and opportunity here. Vice President Harris will pursue responsible, humane immigration policies that welcome, not threaten, those seeking a better life. So it combines, Saagar, the idea of like, okay, people should be coming here legally. Vice President Harris's parents came here legally, both of them, and people should come here legally. But we also need a system that allows for that. And right now, that's not possible. And it's a completely contrasting vision, rather than just seating Republicans like, we got to be tough on the border, got to be tough on the border, got to be tough on the border. It's an actually alternative vision, and one that, you know, immigration is a complicated issue in terms of the polling on it. One that quite a lot of Americans, in fact, a majority of Americans, also believe in this conception of the country. So, you know, I think that's a much stronger direction to go in, not only because, you know, I happen to agree with the policy, but also because it doesn't open her up to these very clear charges of like, you sound completely different than you did just 4 years ago.
You're fake. And I think that's what it comes down to. I mean, I will note, you know, the number two thing that they tested was Vice President Harris is a prosecutor over the course of her career. She's taken on gangs and drug smugglers, put a violent cop killer behind bars for life. She supports bipartisan legislation for Border Patrol to the money they need. She will take border security first, putting violent gangs like MS-13, drug smugglers, coyotes, and human traffickers in prison. So that one, I mean, obviously that's a very popular message. I think it should be a popular message. But I think what you're correct about is not only about the testing, it's that one is a way less fake than I'm the prosecutor who's gonna throw these people in jail. It's like, no, you're not. You flooded our country with 8 to 10 million illegal people. Get out of here. Who do you think you are? And now you're gonna tell me that you're gonna take the border seriously? It's like, you're a joke. And everybody who's voting on immigration, all of us know that you are full of shit. And that is where, I don't know though, where the swing state voter will receive this message, because this gets to what we just talked about with Trump. You need actual discipline. Even with Trump on immigration, I have yet to see him actually prosecute this case in the press conference and on the airwaves. Now, look, it could be coming. Like I said, they claim that all of these ads are gonna come after Labor Day, and they'll probably let these ads come out so that they can try to do the contrast. But that's a very dangerous territory, I think, for the Trump campaign. And broadly, you know, what we see too from Kamala is that if they can get her on immigration, which is the number one attack, that bleeds through to the economy and everything else. Of this woman believes nothing, she's phony, and she's reading off of a poll-tested script. And this is where her refusal to do interviews and her refusal also to, you know, only participate in one debate, which is a disgrace. I mean, that really robs us of that chance to actually press her. Now, if I were her, I would do the same thing. You know, to be clear, cynically, it's the correct move. Democratically, definitely not the best move.
Yeah, I mean, Trump, just to give the example, at that press conference, you know, he's still talking about she became black at the National Association of Black Journalists. What he came there to make that attack. Like, that of all the things they tested was the weakest of anything you could say about her, and I think has a major possibility of a backlash effect. When I don't agree with the direction and the framing, whatever, but clearly just saying borders are a million times is way more effective.
Yeah, it's true.
And then forces her on the back foot to have to talk about what she said before and what she says now and get the press to, to start pressing the campaign on that, et cetera, et cetera. And like you said, it's not like they don't respond. They have been asking Harris surrogates about the quote unquote stolen valor Tim Walz thing. They, after J.D. Vance went and tracked her in her campaign plane and Trump was making a big deal on it, she's not doing any interviews, she felt pressure to have to do interviews. So, I don't think it's the most ideal way for her to rebut these charges, but I also don't see the Trump campaign really effectively landing the attack at this point. And I'm also just not sure of the salience of the issue, because also the numbers at the border have gone down quite dramatically over the past several months. People still say the economy is overall the number one thing. And I know you'll say like, oh, well, these things are tied together, but most of the people who are voting on immigration are Donald Trump voters to start with. So, I'm not sure that this will be the critical issue that Republicans want it to be, and it certainly won't be if they don't do an effective job of raising the salience of it.
Just because the numbers are down doesn't mean, like I said, there are still 8 to 10 million new people who are here illegally. The total illegal population is probably 30 million now. That's insane. That's almost 11% of this entire country. So, it's not like new numbers aren't exactly making that horrible situation worse. And then second, of course, I do think that they're tied, but swing state polling tells us that the white working class voter, the people that they allegedly need to, win over, that is their number one issue, is immigration. It's not just the economy. And in the eyes of the voters, the two are tied. So look, Arizona, obviously, very, very border hawkish state that we have seen from Mark Kelly and even the Democrats who are willing to be like, I'm standing up to Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. So that's where I want to see Mark Kelly. Maybe, someone in the press could ask him a question, be like, you criticize Joe Biden, so do you stand with Kamala Harris? Like, which way do you think she's gonna go? And then if he says, well, she's gonna go in my direction, we can go to her and be like, is that true? Is that what you agree with? Because that's very different from where you were 3 years ago. I just come back to, when you have the media like this in your pocket, it's very difficult, unless the Trump people are ultra disciplined and force them to actually ask something. But if they continue this bullshit about AI, that's a gift to CNN. All they want to do all day at CNN and MSNBC is look at this loser Trump talking about AI, crowd photos, and attacking Brian Kemp. Now, if you don't do any of that and you only talk about immigration, they got to talk about something, and that's how you actually get them to respond. So the discipline and the lack of discipline from the Trump people is honestly maddening to watch whenever you see somebody like this just flip on a dime in the national public eye.
And obviously, Trump has always been undisciplined.
Yes, of course.
But to your point, in previous in 2016 in particular, in 2020, he was I was like all over the place, way too online. There wasn't really an effective messaging strategy there either. And lo and behold, even as an incumbent president, he ends up losing. Yeah. But in 2016, his lack of discipline worked to his advantage because he had his finger on the pulse of something. And he just doesn't this time. The only finger on the pulse with Trump right now is just like his own sense of unfairness and grievance, which isn't, at that point, there was still that sense of grievance, but it was like connected to how a broader population. Now it's just about him. It's just about like how unfair this was to him personally, and not this broader finger on the pulse message that is actually landing. And so, even if they have an effective point that they can make here, which I think it is probably the best in terms of issue focus. It is the best issue focus for them, but he is unable to drive the point on an issue that has always been one that he's been super comfortable talking about. So it's kind of wild to see him flailing even in this area.
Never put it past, in the words of Obama said, never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to fuck things up. Like with Trump, I think the same logic applies. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.